Jeff Wells, Paul Sheehan, this is officially the craziest Oscar Derby ever. Just less than 2 weeks ago, we thought we had this all figured out, that Social Network was going to win Best Picture, and now we have it all figured out that it's not going to win Best Picture, and King's Speech is going to. What is going on, Jeff?
Well, I think that basically the last few years have indicated that the Academy had gotten over what I call the Huggy Bear comfy blanket requirement for Best Picture. They have to make you feel warm and sort of soft and cuddly inside. And then, Hurt Locker, of course, and The Departed and No Country for Old Men indicated that there was a new sensibility, perhaps inspired by the younger membership, the hipper membership, that it doesn't have to be a comfy blanket movie. Well, if you analogize that to the Alcoholics Anonymous and the Academy having gotten off the wagon when it was going, in the more artistically pure sense, it's now back to the booze and slurping. That's what's happening.
That's what's going on. Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Jeff.
No, but I think that just because some journalists thought that it was going to be Social Network, we didn't hear from anybody that sort of a member of the Academy up until the Guild Awards. So just because people thought it was going to be Social Network and suddenly it's not, doesn't mean the race has changed. It's just perhaps the people covering it didn't get what they wanted. And I think in terms of your point about the younger membership, I mean, they only allow in about 100 extra new people a year when there's close to 6,000 people. I mean, you don't have a
not enough people have come in.
Well, it's not even. And perhaps in the old, when you talk about, they dropped this Huggy Bear feeling, well, maybe they just went actually shockingly with whatever the best movie was that year.
Look, in the past few years, we thought we observed a new pattern for these awards, and that was that the Oscar voters were following the Critics' Awards, because these non-Huggy Bear movies like Hurt Locker and No Country for Old Men, these completely atypical Oscar movies were winning, and the only logical explanation that I could think of, because it defied all past trends, was that they were embracing what the film critics groups said. And that because these old guys now have internet, they now have email, they are finally plugged into what's happening in the critical world, they were embracing it. So we have made that false assumption this year. The Social Network won absolutely every precursor award, and then the minute, to make the distinction Paul just made, the industry started piping in, from the Producers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Screen Actors Guild. We got a totally different perspective.
Here's the revelation that came to me this morning as I was writing an email to a friend. The Social Network is very strongly, emphatically a Gen Y movie. Gen Y, young Gen X. I think that on some level, the boomers and the post-boomers, not all of them, but a sector, the ones that don't understand that Jesse Eisenberg was refreshing the page, at the end of Social Network, and he was looking for his girlfriend. I think that there's kind of a generational resentment thing going on. It's basically very good movie, folks. I mean, excellent, well-made, David Fincher, but it's not our movie. And it's kind of what you're about, but it's not what we're about. And we know that you're nipping at our heels, and eventually we're going to be out, and you're going to be running the show. We get it. But right now, F you, we're not going to get on board. No offense, we like the movie, but sorry. So.
Well,
but I disagree in the sense of, why do they have to get on board? I mean, they didn't, in terms of what you're saying, it's like, well, the Hurt Locker last year.
No, getting on board with the concept of it being the best film, which had been advanced by so many critics groups, universally almost all the critics groups. And they don't want to buy into that. They want something that's theirs.
The critics actually, the best film was Toy Story 3. I mean, if you're going to talk about what...
Okay, if that were to win, I would say, okay, well, you've got a really excellent film, one of the best I've ever seen in the animated realm. I'm not going to argue with it. But I do argue with a film that is essentially really not of the 21st century. It is essentially an early 90s Merchant Ivory masterpiece theater buddy movie, which is okay. I'm not trying to say that there's anything wrong. I like The King's Speech. I think it is a very good film for what it is. It just is not. I can't put it into words. It's just so wrong for it to say it's better than the other four. I just think it shouldn't be held up as the paragon of the best of 2010.
But I would expect that if you go back through the first 82 years of Best Pictures, you probably think half of them shouldn't have been held up as the best films of that year.
Well, there's a few that stand out. This is one of them. This is like Dances with Wolves winning over Goodfellas. It's like the Greatest Show on Earth. It's like Around the World in 80 Days. It's like Ordinary People beating Raging Bull. It's one of those. Which is to say, I mean, I can look at even Greatest Show on Earth. I can say is a relative. I can see what they were talking about. It had some elements that were appealing. That was emotionally engaging, gripping, whatever you want to call it, but it's just, this is one of those things that it shouldn't happen, but it is, because people like it, because it's doing that emotional thing that they love, that they want, and I think also, on the, as I said, on the generational level, they don't relate to it. It's at the Social Network. They don't see it as theirs. They see it as a much younger person's movie, and they don't feel it the way younger people do.
But what's odd about this, Jeff, is that early on this season, most of the pundits were picking, or maybe not most of them, but a huge number of them, Steve Pond, for example, from The Wrap, was saying, even before he even saw it, King's Speech is going to win. And they have been emotionally invested in wanting it to win in the same way they were emotionally invested in The Hurt Locker. Sometimes the pundits, you can see them actually rah-rahing for this. And the minute that King's Speech won Producers Guild, they all raced over and changed their predictions instantly within hours because they wanted to win. There's something powerful about the King's Speech that may not be innovative and great in the terms of what journalists look for, but it touches people on a very deep emotional level. And I think the level is this. I think the connection is so powerful is in that this is a king, a reluctant king, who is not equal to his job. And I think these people in this town believe that they are hollow kings of Hollywood. You know, there are psychiatric studies that over and over say that the fear that successful people have the most, the one that gnaws at them, is that they are a failure and everyone else deserves their success. And this movie crystallizes that in a powerful way.
Well, who is Jeffrey Rush's character there, to continue the metaphor then? He is the kind of the wise, clever fellow of a lower station who tells the Hollow King how to be a real king, or how to help them
He
at least
empowers him
pretend
do
to be.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
But there's something about that, his character, that people out there are responding to push this to Best Picture, and I believe that's the emotional investment. That's just my theory. Are we all three agreed that if it wasn't in this race, Social Network would win? That and to buy into that idea, you're accepting the fact that this isn't an anti-Social Network vote. It really is a vote for the King's Speech, that they really love the movie so much they're embracing it because it touches these emotional triggers you're talking about.
Somebody told me a story that is fairly recent as we speak, and that's Jane Fonda speaking to some friend recently, saying what she loved, what she had seen, and she was completely down with the King's Speech, and she loved the fighter. She didn't mention Black Swan. She mentioned the fighter, and then but she didn't even talk about Social Network.
Which is interesting, because she's actually of the old guard, somebody who's very much has an online presence.
And she's pretty hip for.
She's got a daily blog. She tweets.
Yeah.
I mean, she's somebody who's aware of Facebook. I don't know if she has a Facebook page, but she's certainly aware of that online world. But I don't. It's interesting because isn't True Grit now touting itself as sort of the best American film of the year? So you're asking, would something other than Social Network win? I don't know. Would they go with the Coen? I mean, since there's sort of this coolness to the Social Network in the sense of people feel like removed from it, would they go with something more like True Grit, which has Haley Steinfeld in it with that leading supporting performance, with that supporting leading performance?
I got to take myself out of this because I don't know what to say about True Grit. True Grit is a pretty good Coen Brothers film. It's so far below the best of their stuff. I just don't understand. I don't understand the box office for that movie. It's over 100 now, right? And maybe hitting 2 by the time it's done. So I don't get it. It's just well done. I didn't feel anything from it.
Now, I'm curious. Do you think that, given what you were talking about, the historical impact of the Oscar, do you see an animated film winning in your lifetime?
No, I think that animated films should stay on their side of the river. I'm from Arizona. I'm sorry. That's a very ugly thing to say in some people's view, but I just don't think. What's the point of having an animated Oscar in the first place? Why does it have? We have to break that barrier. We have to get over. So,
what about a motion capture film, then? like a Beowulf or?
I don't know how to answer this. I think I know that it's blending. I know that animation and motion capture and live action, but we all know when we're watching something that's more or less organic. I think that that Avatar was essentially an organic film that was enhanced in a miraculous 3D CG way. But I bought into that world more than I have, let's say, what we would call animation. I know that it's blurry. I understand it's not a distinct world anymore, but I can't. I just don't see what's the point. And when the Academy's certainly not going to change its mind and say, okay, let's abolish the Best Feature Oscar for animation, because then most of the well-made, deservedly praised animation films won't get any acclaim.
Right.
Word-wise.
But, you know, in terms of, say, Avatar, I mean, I was saying to Tom the other day about ABC, it was anyone but Cameron. I mean, that's what my feeling was last year. It wasn't so much embracing the Hurt Locker, it was the rejection of Cameron. I mean, that...
Are they rejecting David Fincher, do you think, for his personality? Is that what's going on? Someone was telling me that they think
that's not what it is. They don't empathize with these kids in this movie. There's nothing to root for in this movie. With The Hurt Locker, you're rooting for Jeremy Renner. In No Country for Old Men, you're perversely rooting for Javier Bardem. Here, these kids are such weasels screwing each other. It's disgusting. It's frankly what Oscar voters do every day in Hollywood.
It's what Hollywood does every day,
exactly.
Yeah.
I know, in a different media frame. But maybe it touches too close.
My younger son related to him intensely and thought he was really like in his corner the whole way. So I liked him. I thought he was fine. I knew he was being a prick to his best friend, obviously, and I'm sorry that he didn't have the character and the compassion to be a little nicer about it. To get in his corner and say, "Listen, man, you really got to get with what Sean is doing, what we're doing in terms of capitalizing Facebook. Stop like being back in New York and trying to get advertising. Come out and get with a program. Forget the internship." But he didn't, and that wasn't a very nice thing to do. But I think it's a truism about genius. Brilliant people tend to be, more often than not, in my experience, not that good with social graces. In fact, not even that good with the basic compassion stuff. They tend to be off in their own planets. But that's the mark of a genius level person. So.